Hey guys, what's up? It's Magma Cubing, and in this video I'm going to be going over my personal recommendations on the best speed cubes of 2022. So let's get into it. Before I get started, I want to go over some simple rules. First of all, this is not a budget cube list. This is going to be only for the best of the best flagships in every single event. And two, there may be multiple cubes in each category, so that doesn't limit you to only one cube. And yes, I will be going over my main speed cubes for each event just to kind of keep you in the loop on what I use. Starting off with the first event, we have 2x2. So my personal recommendation is the Wapo WRS 2x2. In my opinion, this 2x2 is the most customizable out of all the 2x2s for specific reasons. So I feel like it would fit a wide range of turning styles. First reasons is, yes, it does have adjustable magnets, kind of like the Flare 2x2 where you have magnets in one corner and it basically changes the magnetic feeling of the puzzle. And I have it on the second strongest setting, which is not too strong but not weak either, so it really makes this cube feel consistent. Another thing is it does have a dual adjustment setting, which you can't really see, but it does allow you to change the spring tension on your cube, and I for one love that, because for me 2x2s have a problem with elasticity in their springs. They may turn well, but for me they just don't really fit my needs, so this really helps me tone my cube to a way I like it. So yeah, overall for $15 I really cannot give anything better than this 2x2, and it does have really good competition performance as I have used it to break my 2x2 PBs in comp already. Another recommendation I could give in this category is the Volk 2M. This is a really hard 2x2 to find, but it's still really reliable, and it's a really simple but really outstanding cube in terms of performance. Now, I do need to mention this cube does have MGC V1 springs in them, which I basically took out of this cube, and this basically just makes it a little bit more flexible, but still the stock springs are really good, and if you can find one, try it out and use it. So that's basically my 2x2 recommendations. Next is 3x3, and the two 3x3s I recommend for 2022 are the Moyu Weilong WRM 2021 and the X-Man Tornado V2. Let's go on to some of the things that makes these cubes the two cubes I recommend for going into 2022 for anybody's main, starting off with the Moyu Worm. First of all, the Worm, for me, is the most functionally viable speed cube. At only $23, this cube allows you to have really good corner cutting, a lot of customization, and just an overall superb feeling cube. And this really just helps you like have a cube that is toned in for you, and for the price, it really can't be beat. Now, I do want to mention that this cube doesn't feel as premium as the Tornado V2, which we'll talk about in a bit, but it definitely beats it in functionality. Now, there also is the maglev version of this cube, which basically is a faster and maybe not as friction-y version of this cube. However, I think the standard is fine. Unless you want purple internals, you really do not have to pay $30 for an already great $23 speed cube. So that's my personal recommendation on that. Now to the Tornado V2. This has a more premium feeling of the two and has become a community favorite as one of the more optimal speed cubes. It really does have good performance, but it does lack in corner cutting. However, I was able to render that with having the tension setting on both 2 and 2 and the magnet setting on the default setting, which allows the cube to be a little more flexible and just have better corner cutting overall. Still not the greatest, but it's definitely better than what it is on most settings. So either or, I would definitely try both of these two as they're both relatively cheap and could fit your turning style. Next event we have on this list is 4x4, and to me the best 4x4s are the X-Man Ambition and the Moyu Aosu WRM. So for the X-Man Ambition, for me, I think this is a very underrated cube. With the proper tension and setup, it really can be a joy to turn. It's a lot lighter than the Aosu WRM, and for me, it does do the small cuts a bit better, which is really nice in terms of solving. And also, I find it to have the best inner layers between the two, just very glidey. and it is really fast compared to other X-Men puzzles. Now, I do main this over the LCWRM just because I like the feeling of this one more, but that's not to say that LCWRM is a bad puzzle at all. The LCWRM to me is the more all-around good 4x4, very crisp turning, small size, and overall just a really good puzzle in general. It has good corner cutting, and it really just depends on how you set it up. For me, I like the Mystic version that the Cubicle has released. And yeah, it's a really, really good speed cube. The only reason it's not my main is the feeling got kind of old, so I didn't really enjoy using it as much. Now, for most speed cubers, I would recommend the LCWRM, but if you want to try something new, I would definitely recommend the Ambition, as I think it is an underrated flagship. Now with 5x5, my personal recommendation is the Aoshwang WRM. The reason behind this is, to me, it's a very underrated flagship. It has great shades, small, compact size, and overall has great performance. It, for me, is just a joy to turn. Definitely one of the smoothest and most fluid big cubes I've ever tried. And yeah, I just think it's overshadowed by the Valk 5 and MGC for certain reasons. The number one reason, the MGC is just a cheaper cube and does give good functionality. And the Valk 5 was just a world record cube, so it kind of overshadowed it in its release. But I definitely think this is one of the better 5x5s on the market. Personally, I enjoy it more than the MGC, but the MGC is a good cube for its price. However, I do think this is the best of the flagships. So yeah, I definitely recommend giving this cube a try, even in 2022. 6x6. I recommend the MGC, and I think a lot of people expected this. The MGC is just a really cheap cube with outstanding performance, not much to do out of the box, and yeah, it really just performs really well. Now, I do think this cube's a little too praised, if that makes sense. For me, this cube is really, really good, except when it pops, because that's when it has a lot of issues, and it really ruins your times. And it's not just put the piece back in, because the pieces do get stress marks, which is kind of annoying because it also shows the quality control of this cube. So I definitely think there should be better 6x6s on the market, but in this current state, this is the best 6x6 on the market, and I definitely recommend it for its price. 7x7 is actually an opposite story. I still recommend the MGC 7x7, but for me, this cube is just so much better than the 6x6, and that is due to the odd nature of this puzzle, since it is an odd layer end by end event instead of an even layer. For me, the MGC 7 is just so good to turn. Very fluid, very fast. I think it has the Aoshwang WRM's fluidity, and yeah, it's a really light and just really good puzzle. And it does have the occasional pop, but it doesn't really set me back like the MGC 6 does. And overall, I definitely recommend this cube. This is a Pro Shop version, but I doubt that the stock would be any different from this cube. A definite recommend for me. So that's it for all the end by end events. So now let's move on to the side events of the WCA. We're going to start off the side events with Megaminx, and there are 3 Megaminxes I recommend, which are the YJ MGC or Yoo-Hoo V2, the Dian Megaminx, and the Gan Megaminx. So for the casual Megaminx solver, I definitely recommend either the MGC or the Yoo-Hoo V2. I have the MGC, I do not have the Yoo-Hoo V2, but in terms of cubing community, I think they're basically the same, this just having a different grip and maybe corner twisting a little bit more than the Yoo-Hoo. But yeah, the MGC Megaminxes are one of the YJ MGC puzzles that I actually do not think are overrated. I think this is a great Megaminx and was my main for some time. It is a little bit bigger and a bit heavier than other Megaminxes, but this is really good for any beginner or intermediate solver that just casually solves the event. Now, if you're intermediate or pro solver, you might want to look at these more premium options. And these are the Dian and Gan Megaminx. So the Dian Megaminx for me is my personal choice. Very light, very small, and just has overall great turning. I love the fluidity of this Megaminx. It just flows so well in the hands, and the shades are amazing. Corner cutting is great, and overall, this cube just really gives me good times. I can't say anything bad about it. The only thing is it does have the minor corner twists. And for people who want a maybe bigger Megaminx and more premium feeling one, there is the Gan. I do not think this is a good Megaminx to go for because it is quite pricey. But if you love that Gan feel and premium feeling of a Megaminx, I definitely think this is one of Gan's better puzzles. it does turn relatively well for its age, and it overall gives a nice, satisfying performance. Next event is Pyraminx, and there are 3 Pyraminxes I recommend, which are the Mo Yu Weilong Pyraminx, the Yushin Huanlong, and the X-Men Bell V2. I'm not going to go into these in depth because I just put out a review or an unboxing of the Weilong Pyraminx, but these are my quick overviews. Yushin Huanlong, being the older brother of these 2 Pyraminxes, to me still has really great performance. It's the more classic feeling of the Pyraminxes, and it has really good magnet strength, overall great performance with maybe subpar corner cutting, but it's still such a good puzzle. And I would definitely recommend for people who just want a casual, traditional solving Pyraminx. We have the Bell V2, which is basically the lighter magnetic feeling version of any Pyraminx. To me, this is the lightest and also like weakest magnetic Pyraminx. However, I love the performance on this cube. It has great corner cutting and overall is customizable to an extent where it can be pretty good. However, I don't think it is as good as the Weilong Pyraminx. If you remember from my unboxing, I said I would have to do some solves and lubrication, and I have, and this Pyraminx with slower lube is great. I have it on the 2nd strongest magnet setting, and with the slower lube, it really just gives a light and also very plush feeling turning Pyraminx. And the corner cutting for me is the best out of the 3. So I definitely recommend the standard or maglev version of this cube. This, of course, being the maglev. But yeah, I definitely recommend this cube to give a shot. So one thing just to mention for people have been complaining about the tips. The tips are easily removable if you go from the side right here and not the tip right here. This will allow you to push them out. Go on to probably one of my least favorite events, which is Square One. And there are 2 Square Ones I would recommend, that being the X-Men Volt V2 and the YJMGC. So these are both similarly priced, and I do think that the X-Men Volt is still comparable to the YJMGC. So we'll start with the Volt. For me, this is a slower and more accurate turning puzzle. May not have as good of corner cutting as this, but for me, the slower turns just make this cube really enjoyable to turn and easier to be accessible for beginners. And the YJMGC, even though really, really good, is really fast and sometimes uncontrollable, but it has great corner cutting, and the feeling is just really premium compared to the X-Men Volt. The one drawback that I have with the YJMGC is, if I don't like black caps, I do like the yellow side, but if you like black caps, this has a problem. The prongs that hold these caps in place break very easily when you try to remove them and put the black caps on. Now for me, they are still able to stay on pretty well. They're not showing any gaps, but you do have to kind of modify them if that happens to you. And I think this is a really problematic decision on YJ's part, because it really makes me very uncomfortable to adjust this cube at all. Well, the Volt, even though may not have switchable caps, at least it comes in a black variant, so you know if you want black, you can get that. And I do think that this is a minor issue, but I think it is something to address. For my favorite event in the WCA Scube, and there are 2 Scubes that I recommend, which are the Aoyan and the GAN Scube Enhanced version. The GAN Scube Enhanced, to me, is just one of the best Scubes ever to release. The decision to have core magnets in the cube just make it very stable, and the smooth turning of this puzzle and great corner cutting makes it an exceptional cube to turn. The only gripe I have with it, though, is the corners do break for some weird reason, at least on the models I've had. The prongs that hold the corners that are not supposed to be adjustable just break, and you'll hear a rattle sound. And I don't know if this is just an issue with the puzzles I've got, but I think it's something to address, so maybe GAN can fix it in the future. But other than that, this is just an outstanding puzzle, and I really want to see what companies can top it, because right now, this cube almost seems invincible. I would not recommend the Aoyan to any pro or intermediate sellers, but for beginners who want to get good at Scube, this I think is a really good Scube. It's not as expensive as the Enhanced, but it has similar performance. It may feel a little cheaper, but it does have those indented centerpieces, which allows you to basically kind of turn your turning style into what will be a standard in pro Scube solving. Right, and for the final event, I would say that there's only one good thing, is clock. I think you guys all knew this was coming. This is the Qi clock. This is the only clock that turns really well out of the box and has no manufacturing defects. as the Shang Shell clock and the Lingyaos do. And that makes it very, very recommendable because those other two puzzles out of the box may not be competition legal. And that's just something you do not want to deal with. So definitely just get this clock if you are going to compete in clock. Before I end the video, I just want to give you a recap on what cubes I use for each event. So 2x2, Weipo WRS, 3x3, Moyu Weilong WRM 2021, 4x4, X-Men Ambition, 5x5, Moyu Aoshuang WRM, 6 and 7, I use the MGCs. Scube, I use the Angstrom Gans Scube Enhanced. Megaminx, I use the Diane Megaminx. Square One, I do use the MGC, I would say. Pure Minx, the Moyu Weilong the magnetic one. And clock, I use the Chi clock. Thank you guys for watching. I will definitely leave links to all the puzzles I mentioned in this video below. And I will definitely have more videos coming like this in the future. So that's basically it. I hope you guys have a good new year, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.